Improv will absolutely change your life.
With TJ and Plato.
I'm TJ.
And as always, I'm Plato. Today we have a special guest. Even though I started a little earlier, TJ and I both take improv here in New Orleans from Anubis Improv, from now a close personal friend of mine, the one, the only, David Hamilton.
Yay! What's up? It's so great to chat with y'all.
What's up, man?
Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Why don't you tell us how you got started with improv?
Ooh,
that's the burning question that I've been wanting to know.
Sure. So I'll tell the long story because why not? So it all started when I was 11 years old. So way back when I was a kid, I thought I might be interested in acting. And I ultimately did like 3 safety films, which are just basically like corporate films as a kid for this company called Sindastar. And I did those films and then didn't pursue it much after. I got into music. My first career out of college was as a tour manager. I came off the road as a tour manager in like 2009, 2010 with this idea that I wanted to pursue my own creativity, but I didn't really know what that meant.
Right.
So I ultimately got to talking with a coworker at the time at a pizza place. Shout out to Theo's Pizza. And he had taken improv classes and he was like, it's great. I had heard about him and I asked him about him. He's like, they're great. You should absolutely do it. So my original thought was, okay, this is a good way for me to see if I'm interested in performing as an actor is what I was thinking, like I did when I was a kid. And so I went to the first class in 2013, in like February of 2013, I think. And I was hooked immediately. And so this theater allowed us to take classes as much as we wanted, which is something that I've taken on in Anubis. Once you've passed the level, you can sit in on classes at any level below the level that you're at for free. And so I was taking like 3 classes a week. I was doing their intensive. I was just doing everything. I just was loving it. Absolutely hooked. Mm-hmm. And so by 2014, I think I graduated in May of 2014. And by the end of 2014, I was teaching. The conservatory director there kind of recognized that I might be good at teaching level 1, which is a really difficult level to teach because you're teaching fundamentals, but also you have to kind of be a kindergarten teacher and be super sweet. And it just takes a certain personality to do it. And I loved it. And so from 2014 to 2018, I was teaching, I was coaching troops. I ended up as co-conservatory director and building manager and a bunch of other stuff at this theater. And then in 2018, I started Anubis, and it started just to do corporate workshops, just to do kind of the business side of things. And then eventually I developed an improv for actors program, which is where I met Brian.
Yay!
We were working with Jim Gleason's acting studio doing that. And then from Brian's class, actually, their class went through the entire improv for actors program, which was 3 levels, but there was 3 short levels. It was basically just equivalent to our level 1 improv curriculum, but they were hungry for more. It encouraged me to convince me to write a curriculum of my own. I wrote a curriculum of my own, and now we've got a 4-level long-form improv curriculum, and we're teaching classes in New Orleans, where it all began, and in Oxford, Mississippi, where I am now. That's the long story.
Nice.
And you say we convinced you, we begged, we pleaded, we bugged you. And what David left out, we started Improv for Actors January of 2020.
Oh, yeah,
and it
right.
was a month-long class and 3 levels. So January 2020, level 1. February 2020, level 2. March of 2020, level 3 got interrupted by a little thing called the pandemic. And we didn't know what was going to happen to our world. And David did not charge us. He was kind enough to keep us going every 2 weeks, bi-monthly. I knew I was going to say it wrong.
Yeah.
And we just get together like this, but it was over like a Zoom thing. And we would just improv, which we've talked to some famous improv people. And improving over when you're not next to the person. They didn't understand how we could do it. It blew their minds. And then when the vaccine finally came out, we all got that. We were able to get back in a room together, finish level 3, and we had our graduation recital. And then we wanted more. So along those lines, because TJ can tell you the story about it, you probably already know, but I definitely push improv like a dealer, but I was posting things on social media and I was like, join us. And you messaged me and said, dude, people think improv is like a cult already. You got to chill a little bit. So,
I mean, it can be pretty culty, but it's so joyful and important. And it teaches so many things that help us with our personal and professional and romantic lives. I mean, it can be culty, and there's actually like some actual concern in that. I mean, there are actually people who, not cult leaders in improv, but there are people who've like taken advantage of their status as like improv teachers. And that's,
right.
And I don't mean to make light of that, but it's culty because you come together as a community in a way that we rarely do as adults outside of organized religion, probably. And so it can be a really special place, improv class and improv communities.
Yeah, we could attest to the power every 2 weeks because you were so stressed out during the pandemic. I'm sure everyone who listened to this would remember, but maybe in the future, kids will be listening to this. And it was so new to us. You never knew if you were going to be able to go back to work again, what's going to happen to the world. And you'd just be stressed out. And you had that pain. We do our improv. We talk like this. We do our little scenes. And then we do a little round robin. Hey, tell us a takeaway. Oh, I learned this today. How'd you feel? And every one of us would say, oh my God, I feel so happy. The stress would just, you touch that creative part of yourself and it pops the balloon of stress and just lets it go. And it was, here I am kind of like, yes, master. Yes, master. I'm sorry. Thank you. But it's addictive. It was so cool,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very positively addictive. It's a very good habit to be in.
Yeah.
I'm only just now finishing up level 2, so 8 weeks in. And our class has really come together in that 8 weeks. We started out as strangers, and now we're all like we're in a WhatsApp group and we message each other, and I've gotten new friends out of it. And I got into improv, started taking the classes to help me with acting. One of the biggest things with acting is you have to make that connection with the person you're in a scene with. And improv, you have to be paying attention to your scene partners or you're going to miss something. And there's a lot of other things that I can dig into that improv has helped me with acting. One is kind of bringing me out of my shell a little bit. That vulnerability, that's something I've been struggling to overcome, the inhibition to show vulnerability. And it is so critical with acting. I've gotten way more than I even hoped for so far out of improv. I've never had difficulty standing in front of a crowd of people and delivering a prepared speech because you rehearse it and you can't really see them anyway. And I thought that I was going to be nervous getting on stage when we did our first showcase, but I wasn't. We lined up and I felt great. I didn't have the single ounce of worry about what are they going to think? And what if I show something that's too vulnerable? I didn't have any fears at all. It was exhilarating, honestly, to get on stage and do that.
Yeah, it's really special, the performances. And we say it, and it's so hard to believe when you're going through level 1 and level 2. But we say, like, the performances are the reward for the hard work that you put in over the 8 weeks. And you think, man, this is going to be nerve-wracking and this is going to be tough. But it really, really is a reward. It's really exhilarating and special. And, there are a few things that you have that kind of level of trust with people that you haven't known that long, and you really do become friends because you're sharing a very intimate, but obviously not in a sexual way, but like a very intimate part of yourself. You're sharing your creative side, which is very youthful. It's very much, it taps into your inner child and that's vulnerable. And when you share that with people for 8 weeks, you become bonded. There's no way not to, there's really not. And it helps with everything. Improv helps with everything. And my partner, who is an improviser, shared with me a video that Alan Rickman had done in an interview where he was talking about the importance of listening as an actor. And he went to so far as to say, he said he didn't understand why people would try to memorize scripts by themselves in a room. It's like, why would you ever do that? That's not what this is. Let's get in a room. Let's talk it out. Let's communicate with each other, because the only thing that matters as an actor is, are you actively listening to the person in the scene with you? That's it.
That's right.
Where all the acting is done. And then when you're doing that, the response, the dialogue that you have comes naturally, because you're responding to that person.
That's right.
I'm speechless. That's hard to do. So one of the, maybe it was expected for you, but unexpected benefits of improv for me, because I was always a loudmouth, always a jokester, is the on-the-day performance. And what I mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is when you're on the stage or in the scene, they call it on the day, when it has to happen. Like David was saying, leading up to it, you can have so many nerves in practice, in class. You step past that point and all that melts away, and you just don't think about it. You live it. You have fun. I've seen it in voice acting class. I've seen it in my singing class and a little bit in my acting class too, but especially in improv. What are your thoughts on that? Could you expand on that part?
Yeah. I like to say it's like riding on lightning. It's because it is. It's this kind of magical experience, and time flies by. I mean, you go into your first showcase, I got to do this for 20 minutes. And then you finish and you're like, that was 20 minutes? That felt like 2 minutes. Are you kidding me? It flies by. And it's because you're putting all of yourself into something, which your concentration is in it. So you're not paying attention to time. But, I also call it surfing on lightning or riding the lightning if you're an old Metallica fan. But it's just that. It's this experience with people that feels tenuous, because you're creating everything in the moment. And you don't know what they're going to say and you don't know what you're going to say. But it's not really that tenuous. You find your balance in that with yourself and with your troop mates, your classmates, and you're just kind of surfing. You're fine. You're not on solid ground, but you're fine. You're doing it. And I think that's the experience of performing live. There really is nothing like a live improv show. There really isn't. I mean, I love theater. I love film. I love all forms of performance. I love music. I love all forms of performance, but there's nothing like an improv show. It's never been done before. It'll never be done again. Nobody knows nobody in the room has any idea what's going to happen. There's always the chance of failure, unfortunately. But it's always there. And that gives it some juice. That gives it some stakes. It matters. This is it. This is the only time we're ever going to do this. And we're going to do our best, Nothing like a live improv show.
And if you try to bring something back from like a show, like I had a class, me and Alan Paul, we stepped up to the scene. I got down on all fours and I was a dog and I wasn't talking. I was kind of barking and he's like, here, boy, fetch. And I kind of gave him the side eye, like, I'm not doing that. And he goes, okay. And he sits down and we're looking, isn't that a pretty park? And I go with my hand like, come see, come saw, a little bit. And he goes, wait, do you understand me? And I go, well, yeah, and, oh, you understood me. Yeah, I understood everything, dude. And things about to change. So I'm blackmailing you. And see, so I would love to bring that out on the stage again, but it's not the same. Even if it was me and him, because there's no surprise, So when we talk about it in improv, it's the difference between invention and discovery. And if you're inventing stuff, now there's a place for using improv to write sketch. I mean, that's what Second City does essentially, right? And so if you do an incredible improv scene and you want to call it back, you want to come back to it later on, write it as a sketch. Now you're gonna have to put more effort into it because it's got to be actually funny, right? As opposed to like just funny in the creation of it, which is a very different type of funny. But it's the difference between invention and discovery. So if you're inventing stuff, if you're trying to be funny, if you're trying to say a weird thing, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel it. Your scene partner's gonna feel it, and the audience is gonna feel it, even if they don't know they're feeling it. Right? An awkwardness.
That's
right.
Awkwardness.
It changes the dynamic of the scene. On the other hand, the discovery if you're truly open to the possibility of just discovering what's happening and how your characters feel and what they're doing and all of that, you can do or say something that's like objectively not funny, but it reads as hysterical because you discovered it in the moment. The discovery gives you some extra leeway and makes things funnier. And that's the difference. You bring something back that you did in class or that you did in warm-ups, it's not going to feel the same. You're always doing yourself a disservice.
And the inside jokes they're not going to play well to the crowd because your class develops inside jokes to certain things that are said. You touched on something with the discovery versus invention. I really started realizing the difference in how the scene plays out with discovery after level 2. Level 1, going up to my turn, I would be thinking, okay, what would be something funny to start this with? And it was never as smooth as when we got up there and just discovered. We had a great scene. There were 3 of us, and we all kind of realized at the same time what the scene was about. And it was way better than other ones I had invented on the way up there. And it took a little bit of slow turning to get to that point, but the discovery is happening a lot more smoothly now, I think.
And that's about when it happens. And at the end of level 2, that's when that starts to happen. I was the same as you, TJ. I was like constantly thinking of things. I couldn't imagine going on stage completely blank. The way I broke myself of that habit was I took a week-long intensive, and we were doing class from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday for an entire week with a show every single night. You just don't have that many ideas in your head. I'm not that smart. Couldn't possibly. By day 2, I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. My brain is mush. But it was so important to get to that part for my brain to be mush, because then I really started to trust that things would come. It's hard to trust. It's hard to trust that you're connected to something, and this gets a little woo-woo, but I'm a little woo-woo. You're connected to something. You're connected to the power of creativity. And all we're really doing in improv class, it's a lot like Buddhism. We're not really learning new things. We're learning structures, but what we're really doing is just getting out of our own way and allowing creativity to flow through us. That's what we're really doing when we're doing improv. And the more you can do that, the more you'll surprise yourself, the more fun you're going to have, the more fun your scene partners are going to have, the more fun the audience is going to have.
Yeah.
I found the same thing in singing class all my life. It's not like people say, oh, you suck, but you get nervous about that. There was an incident in a choir, and people were like, well, you don't really have the vibrato, and they were just lukewarm or even less about how do I sing? Oh, okay. And then in your head, and you've heard people say, I don't like my voice and I don't sing well. And just that block of energy keeps you from doing anything. So TJ started taking lessons with Olivia Peck. And I had already introduced TJ to improv. So we were talking. And then I wanted to strengthen my voice for voice acting. My goal is to be a cartoon one day, more so than I already am. So we were talking. He goes, yeah, I'm taking singing lessons. And that was right when I wanted to do that for the daily exercise. Oh, really? Yeah. He introduced me to her. I started, and she did a pick a first song. Let's see where you're at. And I was okay. And then it's been a couple months, and I just, shared some of my songs on Facebook because I was petrified to do it. I liked it, but it's like, what is somebody? Screw it. I know I like it. And it's the same thing with him. It's getting rid of that. I've got to be perfect and just finding your own talent and letting it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perfection is the death of any good art, right? Like it's just not, maybe with the exception of sculpture, right? Like
sculpting,
maybe, but even then, I'm sure I am not a sculptor and have no idea how that process happens. And I imagine even then you're making happy little mistakes, right? But especially in improv, perfection is no good. It's boring. It's very, very boring. We don't want perfect improv scenes don't exist, number one, because we're not writing them ahead of time. They also wouldn't be good. It would be too clean. There wouldn't be any discovery. There wouldn't be any messiness. There wouldn't be any fun, really. Right. Yeah. Olivia is a very talented actor and singer, and she took Improv for Actors way back when. Improv for Actors, and that's how I know her.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, have you gone down the stand-up comedy route at all? Have you done any of that?
Stand-up has never really appealed to me. It's just not. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy listening to it. I enjoy stand-up comedians and have forever. I mean, I grew up on Eddie Murphy Raw, Had that on VHS when I was way too young to have that on VHS.
Right.
And then speaking of not holding up, boy, oh boy, is that offensive as
Yeah,
heck.
that's problematic. But anyway.
Oh my God. Yeah. But it was fun.
Right.
Anyway, I love stand-up comedy, but it's just not my form of comedy. I don't have any desire to do it. I never have. And there is a level of perfection in stand-up. I was watching, I don't know if it's Sarah Silverman's latest special now, but this was a couple of years ago. And her jokes are so perfectly crafted. I mean, she's just a master. She's been doing it forever. And her jokes are so, every moment, every pause, every mistake that she makes. Oh, I misspoke. Everything is perfectly crafted. And it's brilliant. It's funny as heck, but it's just not what I want. Not what I want to do in my personal comedy, you know?
Yeah. I don't have any interest in it either. I do enjoy doing improv. I don't know if I'll ever get to the point of being in a troupe and doing it regularly. I think I would like to. It's just a matter of finding that right group of people to do it. But stand up never appealed to me either. I like watching it, but I couldn't see myself up there doing that.
Yeah, me neither. I've joked with my partner Maggie about doing stand up, and you know the comedians that I love are like Bill Hicks and George Carlin and like the ones that are saying stuff. And I was like, if I get up and do stand up, it's just going to be a TED talk. I'm just going to it's not going to be funny. It's just going to be me complaining about capitalism for 5 minutes. It's like, there's not, I don't have, and you know, and people who manage to do that and make it funny are incredibly talented, but I'm not one of those people. I'd just be bitching. And that's not really funny.
I don't think I have the timing for it.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain level of timing that goes into it.
I mean, that all comes with practice, but yeah.
Sure, of course.
I think that's, other than acting, I think that might be one of my secret dreams, to be a stand-up.
Interesting.
It's not at the forefront right now. And I did take a class with Rich Tallarico about joke writing, and he wrote the Aaron sketch on Key and Peele. There was a commercial, if you remember. So, Mr. Dumbass, I'd love to work for your company. Yes, Mr. Dumbass, Mr. Dumbass, Mr. Dumbass. And then the boss says, the name is Dumas. He actually acted in that one. The writing of the joke structure, that was my first time doing it. And like you were saying, you feel like you get on stage and you just bitch. That's kind of where we started. You know what I mean? And mine was like when you're walking in Walmart and people just stop and block the aisle so they can chit chat or leave a path open. You know, if I start getting in the cars, it lights that are too bright, license plates of a brand new car that are up in the tinted windows where you can't even see them, and then people's driving. So we won't get me off on a tangent there. We had talked about, David, you and I, and I'm sure Mark Carlo and some of the other stars we talked to during the pandemic, that stand-up is just, you're there by yourself, while improv, you are supported by your people. So
yeah, very much so.
I just think that's so better, so much better. Because when you can say things like "so better," people can catch you, and you won't look as stupid.
The stand-up communities are different. I mean, I shouldn't speak out of turn, frankly, because I'm not really a part of the stand-up communities, but they feel a little more competitive than the improv communities to me. And I think part of that is because, like, you know, there is opportunity to make a living as a stand-up comedian. There isn't really an opportunity to make a living as an improv comedian. So the communities feel different. Now, obviously, there's a ton of support in stand-up communities as well. You know, people helping each other out, helping people, you know, structure their jokes and get their tight 5 or tight 10 or whatever. But yeah, it feels a little different to me as an outsider.
Your experience. My
limited, non-existent experience with it. Yeah.
Speaking of your experiences, you once traveled overseas, moved overseas. Had a great little adventure. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So my partner, Maggie, brilliant, incredible, one of the best improvisers in the world, and beautiful, was getting her master's degree in fantasy literature from the University of Glasgow. So we moved to Glasgow, Scotland, and it took a couple of months. We were there for a year. It took a couple of months for us to kind of find the improv community there. And we happened to find it. So the Glasgow Improv Theater is, oddly enough, the theater that runs the Edinburgh Improv Festival. And we found the Edinburgh Improv Festival just in time. We actually got lucky. Somebody backed out or couldn't make the travel. And I got in touch with Jason, who runs Glasgow Improv Theater. Awesome dude. American dude, California, but awesome dude. That theater is amazing. Everybody over there is a sweetheart. Love them, miss them very much. And Maggie and I got to perform on the Edinburgh Improv Festival, just kind of on a whim, kind of as a last minute addition. And we had a great time. It was so much fun. We had just started classes too. So, I kind of found the theater and all this happened at the same time. We were jumping into classes. We, got booked on the festival, and we had been in class for maybe 2 weeks. I think we jumped into level 2. They were starting at level 2. We jumped into level 2, and we had been in class like maybe 2 weeks. And all of our classmates like packed the front row. We're loud as heck. We're so sweet about it. Really, some of the best people and some of the best improvisers. So Scottish people are just inherently more funny than other people. I think Irish people have it as well, but they're just funnier. I mean, it's sort of a non-American thing, but, and it's a very like UK thing as well, but man, Scottish people and Glaswegians in particular are just funny. And there were a couple of people in that class, Kimmy, shout out Kimmy, and several others. Kimmy's like, she was a baby. She's like 19, 20 years old or whatever. Just like is one of the funniest people you'll ever meet in your entire life. And so many of the people in that class were just so naturally funny that the experience of being in an improv class with them was so fun because most of them didn't have improv experience. And so instead of learning this brand new skill and coming into it with like, I came into it just being like, maybe I'll be the straight to someone's absurd. Maybe I'll be, someone fun can play off me. And I had to find my absurdity and I had to find my voice, find my ability to be funny. And many of these people were coming at it from an entirely different direction, whether they knew it or not. They were hysterical, natural, and they were just finding a way to be able to do that with other people. And it was so fun to watch. So funny. So great. Love that place. Love those people. We learned the Herald too. They teach the Herald. They basically teach UCB's curriculum at the GIT, the Glasgow Improv Theater. And so we learned the Herald, and I had done a bastardized version of the Herald at the theater that I was at in New Orleans. In this troupe called the Jet Blacks. And so I had some knowledge and experience of it, but we did like a strict real Herald, opening, the intercession games, everything. And it is a hard ass form. It was hard, but it was great. Super rewarding.
What was difficult about it?
The Herald is incredibly structured. I don't like it. That's the reality of it. I don't love the Herald. I think that, and the improv that I teach and that I prefer, we don't even take suggestions. It is wide open, blank stage in your brain, nothing else. And that's the way I prefer it. So, I went in with those biases, frankly, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning the structure of it. But you're doing an opening, you're pulling scenes from that opening, doing 3 of them, doing a game in between those 3, then coming back to those 3 scenes, doing another game, and then coming back again. It's a fun and difficult structure, but there was just too much rigidity in it for me. And I felt like I was constantly thinking and not letting myself be free enough. And I imagine if you get enough experience doing the Herald, it becomes very freeing. That structure becomes a structure that you can work in, but I didn't get to that point. So
I got you.
Could you expand upon short form versus long form? Like I have reached out, like I have a fellow actor and she wants to do improv. Her schedule is so busy. She's struggling. She's going to try to finally, during the strike, she's had some more time to get into your class. And we've talked about her. But in trying to describe it to her and other people, how would you tell them about short form and game versus long form?
Yeah, well, the easiest thing for American or British UK audiences is just referencing Whose Line Is It Anyway, right? Whose Line Is It Anyway is obviously like the most successful, well-known improv that's ever been done. And it's short form. So short form, you set up the structure of a game and you improvise within that structure. And those games are varied and vast and nearly infinite in the number of different games you can play. And they're great. Super fun. Long form is more open-ended. There's no game structure that you're working under. You're just kind of walking onto a blank stage and creating a scene that's not narrative, but is reminiscent of theater. You're just creating a moment in time between a number of characters, and you're discovering who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and how you feel about it. And then you're finding the funny thing. And that's not dissimilar. You're doing scenes in short form improv too, oftentimes, but you're doing scenes inside of a game structure. And in long form, there's less structure. And as I mentioned, most long form troops, most improv troops generally take a suggestion from the audience to get them started. And that's usually just to like get the juices flowing, to get some audience buy-in so they feel like they're involved in the show, which I think is of great value. But for me, it created an expectation where the audience kind of wanted to see their idea in a concrete form. And I think the smartest way to take and use suggestions is to go 3 or 4 steps past them. You know, if somebody mentions toilet paper, you're taking it 2-3 steps beyond that. You're thinking, oh, toilet paper. Okay. That happens in the bathroom. And then I've got the whole, tile. I'm going to talk about, tile is my inspiration. So you end up in doing that, being inspired by something that the audience isn't really recognizing anyway. So you might as well just let it come from the great creative power in the universe, as far as I'm concerned. That's, no shade to short form improvisers or to long form troops that take suggestions or that do the Herald. I love them all. It's all important. It's all valuable. It's just not the style that I prefer.
Right.
Interesting. I was curious about that too. What was your inspiration for using Anubis?
Yeah. So this is a question I get asked with like a bunch of different reactions or intentions behind this question because it's such a weird name. So Anubis is the ancient Egyptian god of the underworld. Anubis is the coyote-headed god that guides people into the underworld. So I used to have a witty response that was about like, well, we're going to guide you into the unknown world of creativity. Really, it's just because I'm obsessed with ancient Egyptian culture. I knew that the coyote-headed god would look cool as a logo wearing a suit. The old theater that I worked at had a luchador, a Mexican wrestler in a suit. And I was like, I kind of want to do that type of deal. And then that name had never been used. Anubis Improv hadn't been used. So I knew I would get all the socials, the website, and everything would be Anubis Improv. So it was a combination of those stuff, like business decisions. And then that's my personality. I love thinking, talking, and learning about ancient Egyptian culture, ancient cultures in general. And so it fit. And I love it as a name.
As we can see behind you on your plaque, which says yes and.
That was a gift from one of my classes.
Oh,
their signatures are all in the back.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's the plastic dagger that everyone is knighted with as they go through their showcase shows.
Yes, I graduated improv for actors and I was knighted. And after I graduated the improv class, I was given an honorary doctorate, the only one of Anubis's first class to be Dr. Knight, Sir of Improv. And
exactly. Yep, you deserve it.
I want to be knighted.
You'll get knighted. Don't you worry.
Tell me. Maybe you'd like to tell people about your socials or where they can research you're doing classes and what classes you have to come up. Anything you want to plug, go feel free, please.
Yeah, appreciate it. Everything's Anubis Improv, Anubis Improv, IMPROV. I really only use Instagram, but Instagram, Facebook, and the website. Classes are always posted on all of those things. I encourage you to check out the website, sign up for our listserv. I send bi-monthly emails every 2 weeks, so we don't flood your inbox with stuff, obviously. We are setting a new date for a new level 1 class in New Orleans. I haven't set it yet, but it will be on Tuesdays or Wednesdays from 6 to 8 at our studio on Severn in Metairie. In Oxford, we'll have a brand new level 1 class starting next year. We'll have our very first Oxford, Mississippi graduating class before the end of the year. To make a long story short, everything is Anubis Improv, anubisimprov.com, at Anubis Improv. Follow us, join our mailing list. We would love to have you. Improv will absolutely change your life.
Well, that's all the time we have tonight. Dave, thanks for joining us. It was very enlightening. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, my pleasure. I love nothing more than talking about improv.